Glenn Woods, thanks for joining me. Phone lines will be open after I get done talking to these ladies. And by these ladies, I mean sitting in the studio with me from the American Civil Liberties Union Wyoming chapter. So we got to come up with a Wyoming acronym for Utah on that one. You know, the W ACLU, and something that just sounds Wyoming when you say it. We'll work on that. So I got Margaret with me and Sabrina, both from the ACLU. They're going to talk about the Wyoming death penalty.
May I insert?
Yes, ma'am.
Marguerite Herman, and I'm here for the Wyoming League of Women Voters.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And okay, so those two groups, and I wanted to make sure to mention what other groups did we have, because you guys had a rally just recently. So who was there?
We did. At our campaign launch, we were joined by Mike Lehman with the Catholic Diocese of Cheyenne and Father Christopher Xanthos with the Orthodox Christian Church here in Cheyenne as well.
Okay.
And we had a few other groups who were there, and I think some who were not able to attend as well.
Right. The NAACP of Wyoming is part of the campaign. They could not be there. And actually the bishop of the Diocese of Cheyenne showed up. He didn't know if he was going to be able to attend, but he did. And we also had Reverend Rick Veit from St. Mark's Episcopal Church here in Cheyenne, and then members of these groups had several people in the audience, and it was a launch. It was a rally, but it also was sort of a launch to get this thing going for the 2020 session.
Well, and we did have it up in the last session, didn't we? And it really didn't. I think it was through the House, but didn't make it through the Senate. Was that it?
Right. So the bill was a House Bill 145, and it was a full repeal of the death penalty here in Wyoming, and it got through the House, actually kind of with flying colors, and it did actually get through the Senate committee. So it got through the Senate Judiciary Committee on a 5-0 vote, a 4 and 1 absent vote technically, and then got to the Senate floor, and for the first time for it ever being debated on the Senate floor, I think the debate went really well, and I think that they're, of course, the Senate tends to be a little bit more conservative and a little, takes its time, and I think has only really had this conversation once. So all of that considered, I think we did really well, even though it didn't pass at the end of the day.
Okay, there's a list of objections here, and I can't say that we can have the conversation based on just one thing. So, okay, the Reader's Digest, if you will, list of objections to Wyoming's death penalty. Either one.
For the League of Women Voters, we're we concentrate on good government, what serves its people best, most efficiently, with integrity, and according to that, the death penalty is inefficient. And it recognizes, so I guess inefficiency was one of the main arguments used during this session by the sponsors, and that it costs a lot of money, and what does it accomplish? So that would probably be the biggest piece.
Okay, and this is part of the conversation I had with some of the listeners here, is I said that if you want to execute somebody, it actually takes a very long time to go through the entire process, and in most cases that I've read, costs more money than than keeping the person in prison for life. So am I getting that correct as far as that objection is concerned?
Yes, but and I'll tell you the thing that actually surprised me, yes, a life without parole is as efficient and costs a lot less. It achieves punishment and protects the public for a lot less money. So that would achieve it. But more than that also, even when a trial, regardless of how it ends up with a plea or exoneration or a not guilty plea, once a prosecutor says, we're going for the death penalty, it sets into motion a very expensive, very resource-intense process that eats up a lot of revenue from the Department of Corrections, prosecutors' offices, but also the public defender's office. So even no matter how you say it ends up, it consumes a lot of resources from an office that is really operating on a very small budget, and so it's inefficient at really any spot along the process.
Okay, so devil's advocate with you then. Let's say somebody could come up with a way of reforming that process. So someone who was, again, a prosecutor is going for the death penalty. And we can actually find a way to go through that process within just a few years, quickly, efficiently, at not a high cost.
Well, I think this is an issue that is brought up time and time again, and I think one of the reasons that the death penalty takes such a long time is because the death penalty is sort of the final price, right? So if you go through a process that only takes a couple of years, are you really exhausting every avenue that you might have for appeal, for really ensuring that the person that you have convicted is the person who's guilty? And if you're actually going through a process that is ensuring that, you know, the price meets the crime. And so part of why death penalty cases take so long is because you aren't just saying that someone is going to spend the rest of their life in prison. You're saying the government is going to put this person to death. The government is going to kill this person. So you have to make sure, if that is, you know, a part of the justice system that you want to have, that you are actually serving justice. And what we know, because we have had exonerations, is that there are a lot of people who are convicted and who are sentenced to death who are not actually guilty. So it really brings up a question of, in an imperfect system, because we are imperfect people, can we actually trust that system to be perfect 100% of the time? One executed innocent person is one too many. So we don't want to have a process that we just push it through because we want to save money and risk costing someone's life.
And I'd like to add briefly, if I could, that the Public Defender's Office cannot cut corners. The American Bar Association lays out some very stringent requirements for how many resources you have to put in, how thorough you have to be, etc. And so even if Wyoming said, well, we'll just cut corners and give it a short shrift, they cannot do it. They have to do the full thing.
Okay, so a listener brought up what I thought was a pretty interesting point. In fact, there are some prosecutors here locally in Cheyenne that brought up the point. They sometimes use the threat of the death penalty in order to either get one, if there's more than one party involved in the crime, one can roll over on the other. You know, we'll give you life in prison if you go ahead and rat on your friend, is one of the explanations. Or sometimes it just gets somebody to confess. If you give us a confession, you'll get life in prison rather than a death penalty, saving a bunch of court costs.
You really have to question at that point what the ethics of that are. I mean, if you are saying, if you don't confess, we will kill you, can you trust that confession?
Right.
And I think, you know, I had a conversation with a lobbyist for the Prosecutors Association as we were going through this process of the legislature, and he said, no, you know, I mean, we don't use it in that way. We don't use it as a tool. We don't use it as a threat. That would be unethical. So I think that there's also, you know, the standpoint from some prosecutors of, you can't use the death penalty in that way. That's wrong. So, you know, if you're looking at a justice system that is based on truth and not based on extortion, you really can't use the death penalty as a threat against someone to get them to confess to the crime you want them to confess to.
Okay, so I've got Sabrina with the ACLU, Margaret is with the League of Women Voters. So phone lines are open if you got any questions. And let's stick with the topic, folks. We got to stick to the topic. 632-6500 or 888-503-6500.
Message and data rates may apply.
Earning your degree from one of the top business schools in the country might sound impossible to fit into your workload. But what if there were a business degree that furthered your career and gave you access to world-renowned faculty, leaders, and mentors, all on your schedule? One that opened doors to some of the most influential CEOs, tech companies, law firms, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. And what if you could earn that degree in as little as 16 months, 100% online? To find out more, text DRIVE to 79645. That's DRIVE to 79645. Start your online MBA, Information Management, or Business Analytics Master's Program from the W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University today. Learn more about the W.P. Carey Business Graduate Programs online. Text DRIVE to 79645. That's DRIVE to 79645.
Mother's Day is this Sunday. What am I going to get her?
Why not send Mom some happy from Sherry's Berries?
The freshly dipped gourmet strawberries covered in decadent toppings like chocolate chips and pink shimmer sugar?
Yep, they start at just $19.99. Or you can double the berries for just $9.99 more.
Whoa!
Just go to berries.com, click the microphone in the upper right corner, and enter code 8484. You've never seen dipped berries like these. They're giant, sweet, juicy,
And I know Mom will love them.
and They start at just $19.99 with double the berries for just $9.99 more. They'll arrive on the date you choose. Fresh, delicious, and beautifully packaged. And your satisfaction is guaranteed.
Okay, I'm definitely sending Mom some happy from Sherry's Berries this year.
Order now because Mother's Day is this Sunday, May 12th.
Remind me one more time.
Okay, now write this down. Shopberries.com. Click the microphone in the upper right corner and enter code 8484. That's berries.com, code 8484.
The first step in your journey is tuning into your home for the Dave Ramsey Show in Cheyenne. AM 650 KGAB.
9:19 is the time. It's AM 650 KGAB Radio. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me and sitting in the studio with me. Representatives of both the ACLU and the League of Women Voters. Paul, if you want to ask that question, go ahead and pick up the phone. 632-60. He just sent me a message on Facebook. I'm not taking that. 632-6500 or 888-503-6500. Should Wyoming eliminate the death penalty? What I was saying to you ladies, but let me see if you think I'm wrong. My opinion has always been in the most extreme and heinous of crimes. Like, again, I was in Florida during Ted Bundy, and that was really bad. So my answer to that was, can we just get rid of this guy? Other than that, I would rather see life in prison or something like that. But what do you think? I'm right or wrong?
The reality is, I think there are a lot of feelings about, the death penalty should be reserved for the worst of the worst, for serial killers, but that's not how the death penalty is used.
Right.
The death penalty is most frequently used against people of color. It's used against poor people. It's used against people who cannot get the kind of defense attorneys that could keep the death penalty off the table in the first place.
Okay.
So there's this idea that, we need to have it as just a tool in the toolbox or, just for worst case scenarios.
Okay.
But as long as you have the death penalty on the table, it will be used against people simply because they can't afford the right attorneys.
Okay, so you're saying there's more poor people and minorities on death row than there are, let's say, middle-class white.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, all right. I'll go ahead and research the numbers. I'll look up that one on you. See how you're doing now. Okay, so what's your strategy here? Because now, in order for you to get this through the legislature, again, last time you had it talked about. Oh, wait, did she just pull out the numbers there?
I have some numbers.
She has some numbers. Go for it. Tell me what.
Well,
tell me
and let me see. Death row prisoners by race: 42% black, 42% white,
Okay.
13% Hispanic, and 3% other, which is not at all in line with the proportion of our population.
Okay. All right. Grab headphones, one of you, because I got a caller on hold. This is Glenn, who's on the phone.
Good morning, Glenn. This is Kurt.
Yes, sir.
Your guest there just said that more poor people are on death row and more colored people are on death row. Isn't it true that they do most of the crimes that wind them up on death row to begin with?
All right.
This is Sabrina, and the answer to that is no. The reality is we live in a country where, a wide array of people commit crimes. And again, if you look at the numbers, the people who end up on death row are disproportionately people of color who commit crimes against white people.
Okay,
Versus...
but now, again, let's get you to clarify that. Because
Yes.
when I take a look at gang violence in major cities, these are not white gangs in major cities. And they're committing crimes against other black, like let's go to Chicago. Okay, it's black on black crime. It's heavy. The murder rate is horrendous there. So somebody gets caught and they're put on death row. So does that play into your statistics?
I have another
Okay,
statistic
go right ahead.
that
Yeah,
it may
and
not.
I'll answer that as well.
Over 75% of the murder victims in cases resulting in an execution were white, even though nationally only 50% of murder victims generally are white. So again, it's not that everything has to be but proportional, but the fact that it's not gives you kind of gives you reason to pause and say, is there a disproportionate use of the death penalty?
Okay, let's go back to the phones real quick. Somebody grab the headphones here. This is Glenn, who's on the phone with us.
Hi, this is Nancy.
Yes, ma'am.
Do your members believe in our Constitution, and if not, why? I'll hang up and listen off the air. Thank you.
Well, I would wonder what the Constitution question has to do with our topic, but go ahead.
And absolutely, I think the members of our group and of the group, all the other groups in the campaign, definitely believe in the Constitution, and the question being decided here is completely consistent with the Constitution. As a matter of fact, there are other groups, we are not making that case, but other groups who oppose the death penalty make the case that this does violate the Eighth Amendment, or the Eighth Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment. So we are not making that, but actually that is being used as an argument against the death penalty.
Okay, Sabrina, I guess you're up on this one here. Caller's on hold. Hi, what you got for us? This is Glenn.
Yeah, I listened to your conversation this morning very intently. Number one, if you look at labor statistics in this country, if you want a job, you can go get a job. You don't have to be poor in this country. And that's not current labor statistics. That goes back over the years. So the idea that these poor people are committing all these crimes is a bunch of bullshit.
Okay. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm going to interpret this in one particular way, which is to say that if we find that the majority of people on death row are poor people, we definitely know that the majority of people who are committing crimes are not poor people. So again, we're talking about a disproportionate use of the death penalty, and it, I think, just goes to show that it is not working.
Okay, one more call and I'll run to the commercial break. Actually, I got several. I'll tell you what, I got several lined up here, folks. Hang on, I got to pay some bills. AM 650, KGAB.
We're here at creditrepair.com, the most recognized name in the industry when it comes to resolving credit report issues and getting that credit score up. With me, I got Aaron. Aaron, what happens when people call creditrepair.com?
A lot. Just one call gets any listener a free credit score, free credit report, and a free personalized credit evaluation right over the phone. In just a few minutes, you'll know exactly what's hurting your credit and get a personalized game plan to help restore it.
And that can make a huge difference when it comes to getting those things that we want, like a new car, a new house, or even a brand new job.
Absolutely. Your credit score is one of the first things lenders look at, and our proven process can help remove those unfair or inaccurate items like late payments and collections from your credit report. In fact, on average, people who have used our service have seen significant improvement in their credit scores month after month.
What are you waiting for? Call creditrepair.com today. Call 800-253-4409. That's 800-253-4409. 800-253-4409.
Message and data rates may apply.
Earning your degree from one of the top business schools in the country might sound impossible to fit into your workload. But what if there were a business degree that furthered your career and gave you access to world-renowned faculty, leaders, and mentors, all on your schedule? One that opened doors to some of the most influential CEOs, tech companies, law firms, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. And what if you could earn that degree in as little as 16 months, 100% online? To find out more, text DRIVE to 79645. That's DRIVE to 79645. Start your online MBA, Information Management, or Business Analytics Master's Program from the W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University today. Learn more about the W.P. Carey Business Graduate Programs online. Text DRIVE to 79645. That's DRIVE to 79645.
The KGAB Wyoming Wake Up with Glenn Woods on AM 650.
9:26 the time. AM 650, KGAB Radio, 9:27 now. Back we go with the callers. Thanks for hanging on through the break. I appreciate it. Who's on the phone with me?
Hi, this is Gretchen.
Yes, ma'am.
It always helps my perspective when they're talking about the death penalty. And I'm always curious to find out, are they pro-life or are they pro-abortion in their views? It just kind of helps me see from where they're coming.
Okay. Answer is, go right ahead.
Hi, Gretchen. It's an interesting question. This campaign against the death penalty has brought together a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, diverse groups. But one of the strongest supporters is the pro-life Catholic Church, the Diocese of Cheyenne, and they are one of the very strong, and it's about the dignity and value of a human life. I personally am also pro-life, but there are people who come to this who do not share that opinion, but they have other things that that draw them to this issue. So you will find a variety of people on this issue.
Okay. Do you find the argument that people say the death penalty is a deterrent as an easy one to defeat? Because I've heard answers to that before. Oh, you just love that question, don't you?
Yeah, and in some ways I do love this question because I think this is one of those oft-repeated phrases that is just patently untrue. If you look at the data, if you look at any statistics, if you look at states that have the death penalty versus states that don't have the death penalty, there is absolutely no evidence that the death penalty serves as a deterrent or actually creates any kind of protection for members of society. And anyone who has looked at these statistics, including law enforcement agencies, will tell you that.
Okay, going to grab another call before the news break real quick. This is Glenn, who's on the phone.
Good morning. I tend to agree with the ladies that are on your program this morning, but I am curious why they don't put as much effort into protecting unborn babies as they do people that have committed crimes.
Okay, I'll let either one handle that.
And this is Marguerite again. And people who lobby on various issues, like for instance, the Diocese of Cheyenne, a strong supporter of this campaign, does in fact they are active in against abortion. So I think what you're trying to do is put us all under. I mean, we are all part of this campaign, but we are all individual groups. And so I think, you'll find a lot of diversity in our groups, and you'll find a lot of groups supporting this, are active in pro-life, and others are not. And so I think, if you enter politics, you find common ground on certain things, and groups come together, and then they part on others. That's just the nature of the practice.
Okay, ladies, you're willing to hang on for another half hour? Take some more calls. That'd be just fine. It's AM 650 KGAB Radio. This hour brought to you by Snowy Oak Coffee, which I'll tell you more about just a little bit after our news break here. They will be here. Phone lines will be open, so you'll be able to answer your questions, ask your questions. They will answer your questions. It's AM 650 KGAB Radio or KGAB.com. We're at 48 degrees, cloudy skies. Fox News update on that weather forecast. Then we get back into it.
We are back, and we are looking at a pretty lopsided matchup, Jim.
That's right, Ron. I mean, in one corner, we've got a 175-pound guy, and in the other, a 6,000-ton heavyweight train.
Jim, this guy has no idea what he's getting himself into.
It's no contest. Every day, people tempt fate and die trespassing on railroad tracks. See tracks, think train.
Sponsored by Wyoming Operation Lifesaver, the Wyoming Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Summertime is fun time, but when the first leg of every journey is a car ride to Denver with traffic, expensive parking, and long lines, fun can turn to stress. American Airlines, operated by SkyWest, offers 2 daily flights direct from Cheyenne Regional Airport to Dallas-Fort Worth, with connections to more domestic and international destinations than DIA. Free parking, no traffic or security lines, hassle-free. Cheyenne Regional Airport is here to take the stress out of your summer travel plans. Book your flight now at CheyenneAirport.com.
Good morning, Cheyenne, and good morning to everyone across southeastern Wyoming. Your day weather forecast this morning is being brought to you by WYDOT. For the latest road conditions, call 511 or go to wyoroad.info. We're going to be hard-pressed to see anything in the way of sunshine through at least Thursday this week. Cool upslope conditions here around the region for the next several days. Some areas of fog this Monday, a little bit of some shower activity, increasing showers as we get into Tuesday and especially Tuesday night on through Thursday. And it will be trending cold enough that we could be looking at some additional spring snows around the region as we get into tomorrow night and especially Wednesday through early Thursday. I'll have more in a moment.
May 6th through 10th is Teacher Appreciation Week. Help the Wyoming Education Association celebrate by creating a note of thanks to public education employees. More than ever, public schools are supporting the needs of the whole child, addressing both the emotional and physical health and safety of students. We know it takes a village to help students reach their full potential. Join us in celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week by going to wyo.org and write a letter of thanks to an educator that's made an impact in your life. That educator will be entered to win fantastic prizes from the Wyoming Education Association.
Carbon County, Wyoming is full of signs of spring. The Rochelle Ranch Golf Course in Rawlins is now open for the season. The sage grouse are strutting and our migrant birds are returning and busy preparing nests. Visitors are welcome to come soak in the free natural hot springs in Saratoga or take a tour of the Wyoming Frontier Prison or the Carbon County Museum in Rawlins. For information and directions, visit wyomingcarboncounty.com or call us at 307-324-3020. Carbon County, Wyoming. Get your west on.
Overcast skies, some fog and drizzle this Monday, highs near 60, lows tonight near 40. Some rain showers on Tuesday, foggy, cloudy conditions again, upper 40s for highs, low to mid 30s for lows, upper 30s for highs Wednesday and Thursday, lows near 30, rain and wet spring snows at times, trending a little nicer by Friday and especially the weekend. This is day weather, meteorologist Mark Huer.
Wow, Jesse, your teeth look amazing. White smiles are in bloom here at New Image Dental Bar. We now offer professional teeth whitening same-day service right in our office. Really? Yeah, schedule your continuing care appointment with us today and get your white smile for free. Summer's just around the corner, and nothing shines brighter than a white smile from New Image Dental. Sign me up.
Call to schedule your appointment today at 307-632-6463 or stop by our office at 2100 Pioneer Avenue, conveniently located near the library in downtown Cheyenne. Excellence in patient care is our #1 goal here at New Image Dental. We're cleaning the West one smile at a time.
9:35 is the time. It's 48 degrees, AM 650, Kgab Radio. My name's Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. Sitting in the studio with me, I have Sabrina and Margaret and ACLU and League of Women Voters, and they've started a campaign or involved in a campaign to eliminate the death penalty in the state of Wyoming. We're specifically asking them why. During the course of the break, I brought up to you ladies, we had, was it just a couple of years ago? Gentleman that was on death row in Wyoming, had been there for 20 some years. I don't remember the exact number. And it turned out he was innocent. And that goes back to, I think you were saying DNA testing doesn't always work. Because some people watch too much television. They get the idea from those CSI shows. We have DNA. Therefore, we know that the guy's guilty, but apparently not.
Well, people can be wrongly convicted, and I have to say, probably all the prosecutors out there would differ with, people cannot be determined innocent, but they've been exonerated because the evidence has been undermined. They re-look at that and they go, "This was not enough." And people can end up on death row, yes, through faulty DNA or old technology, but it's also eyewitness misidentification, government misconduct, false confessions, inadequate defense, misused forensics, jailhouse informants. There are a whole number of things that the science is not going to fix over time, and there will be people who are convicted on faulty instructions to the jury, faulty evidence, and so and these are people who have been exonerated. Over 160 of them since 1973 on death row have been exonerated, and so people want to speed up the process, but obviously these people who have been exonerated benefited from the lengthy appeal.
Okay, 632-6500 is the phone number, or 888-503-6500. Ask your questions as long as they relate to this topic. Go ahead and ask your questions and we'll keep it online. What is your strategy? Because you've got to get a bill together, or do you already have one? And then there's always a lot of political maneuvering in order to get something like this passed. So I guess you're in the public opinion phase right now?
Right. So we intend to bring forward the same bill that was brought this past legislative session. So it will just be a full repeal of the death penalty. And as some folks know, in a budget session, you need to have a 2/3 vote in one house in order to actually even get the bill heard on the floor. And I think that we'll be able to do that. So the hope is to just bring the bill back, and over the course of the next year through this campaign, really have this public discussion and work with folks to convince a few additional legislators to vote yes next year.
Okay, back to the phone. This is Glenn. Who's on with us?
That's Mike.
What you got for us?
Well, I'm curious. You guys keep on talking about the person that was doing the killing. What about the victim here? I'm a father of a murdered daughter, and I actually buried my daughter. I'm curious if these other people, have they ever lost a child or a loved one in this particular way that they're arguing against?
Okay, and that let me expand that question a little bit, because it comes back then to a question for a gentleman like that, and I cannot imagine how difficult that is, because it didn't happen to me. Unless it happened to you, you can't imagine it. So there's the question of justice.
Right. And I just want to first say, I mean, my heart goes out to you, Mike. And this is, I think, one of the hardest parts to talk about when you're talking about repealing the death penalty is the victims' families. And over the course of the discussion, both in the House and in the Senate, this past year in Wyoming, there were members of our legislature who had, family members or community members who had been murdered and had really gone through a process of thinking through, is the death penalty something that would give me justice? And for a lot of folks, when you look at what the death penalty does, it extends the process of mourning. It extends the process of having to deal with the criminal justice system. And for a lot of victims' families who have gone through a death penalty case, they've said, this was not justice for me. This did not help me heal. This didn't help my community heal. So I don't think that there is any one answer for individuals to say the death penalty is good or bad. But I think on a collective level, on a community level, when we're talking about what actually serves justice for our communities and for our state, time and time again, we hear that the death penalty does not actually serve either victims' families or communities or help any of us move on.
Okay, as part of your discussion, are you going to have a discussion with folks or bring up how Wyoming executes people?
This was actually a part of the conversation during the past legislative process. And the reality is, according to our Department of Corrections, we don't have the ability to execute anyone right now. So we have this death penalty on the books.
That's interesting. Why don't we have the ability to execute someone right now? Because it seems easy to me.
We do also have a constitution that says that you cannot have cruel and unusual punishment. Right. So you can't just kill someone if it is going to be particularly painful, or cruel in any other way. So what has been the process for a lot of states has been sort of a concoction of drugs. Right. Those drugs are very difficult to get now, and for a lot of different reasons. And our Department of Corrections doesn't have access to those drugs. So were someone to be on death row in the state of Wyoming, we would actually have no way of carrying that penalty through. So in some ways, having the death penalty on the books is quite dishonest, because it's not actually a punishment that we can follow through with.
Okay, now there was, just so you know, historically, you can go and see America's first actual gas chamber, and that's where they went and constructed an actual metal cylinder. This, because before it was done in a room, they basically tried to seal off a room and put the gas in. This was the first chamber that was ever built for something like that. That actually is on display as something you can tour. And also you can see where people were hung indoors and outdoors inside the state of Wyoming in the past. My point being, gross as all of it is, my point being, there was a time we executed a lot more often. In fact, right across the street here, a man was hung. A lot has changed.
Yeah, and I think that is one thing that we have to keep in mind too, is a lot has changed. And I think that we would not as a society say that putting someone in a gas chamber, or heaven forbid hanging someone, is something that as a society, as people, we would actually be okay with.
Okay, back to the phones. This is Glenn. Who's on with me?
Hey, Glenn, this is Chris.
Yes, sir.
I was just thinking, I may not have heard all of the discussion, but when was the last person executed in the state of Wyoming?
That was... I'm sorry. That was. Can I go ahead and answer?
Yeah,
that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
1992, and it was Mark Hopkinson, who initially was convicted of blowing up a house in Evanston, Wyoming, and there's some discussion whether he knew that people would be home who lived there. They were home, and 3 people died of this family, and then and he was then accused of ordering a murder of a witness against him while he was in prison, and that led to a follow-up death penalty. But that was 1992. The death penalty was reinstated in the state in the late 70s, so it has been several years, and that was the last one.
Okay.
I guess I suppose.
Oh, your phone broke up, so I couldn't hear the rest of it. Well, that brings up an interesting point. You said it was reinstated back in the 70s. So was it repealed once before?
There was a Supreme Court case that actually ruled the death penalty unconstitutional under the Eighth Amendment. But after several years and after a few sort of new methods of executing people came forward, the Supreme Court repealed that decision, and the death penalty was reinstituted in several states that had not, at that point on a state level, banned the death penalty.
That was interesting. I didn't know that. This is Glenn, who's on the phone.
Hey, this is Terry from
Yes, sir.
Wyoming.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
hey, thanks, Glenn. Hey, I got a question. How are you going to fix the problem? Is the legislators going to abolish the death penalty without a fix in place? You talk about all the reasons to abolish it, such as wrong DNA, corrupted evidence, this and that and everything. But is there going to be a fix in place before it's abolished, if it does get to be abolished?
Good question.
So we do already have in our statutes a life without parole. So that is currently in place, and there are several people who are currently being held in Rollins with life without parole. And I think there is an ongoing process, and I think the legislature is continuously talking about how do we improve our system, how do we continue to ensure that we are not convicting innocent people. And just 2 years ago, actually, the legislature passed a bill dealing with actual innocence. So actually putting forward a statute that would help people who have been wrongly convicted in the state of Wyoming. So it is an ongoing process to ensure that our criminal justice system is not convicting people wrongfully, but it is a system that is created by humans, and humans are imperfect. So that is, I think, we are never going to get it 100% right, which is part of why we are arguing quite strongly that the death penalty really just needs to be taken off the books.
Okay, more in just a moment. It's AM 650 KGAB Radio. If you have any questions, 632-6500.
Mother's Day is this Sunday, and ProFlowers is offering an amazing special. 1 dozen assorted roses for Mom for $19.99. And as a special bonus, double the roses and get a premium vase for just $9.99 more. Go to proflowers.com, click on the blue microphone, and enter the secret code 1515. With fresh flowers, express delivery, and unique vases and accessories that Mom will love, ProFlowers has everything you need to get your Mother's Day shopping done for all the moms you know. Order now from ProFlowers to get amazing savings. Just pick a delivery date and its freshness is guaranteed or your money back. 1 dozen assorted roses sent fresh from the farms and guaranteed to stay fresh and beautiful for at least 7 days, starting at $19.99. Or double the roses and get a premium vase for just $9.99 more. Order now because Mother's Day is this Sunday. The only way to get this amazing deal is to go to proflowers.com, click on the microphone in the upper right corner, and enter the secret code 1515. That's proflowers.com, secret code 1515.
Oh yeah, come to Mama. This Mother's Day, send Mom some happy from Sherry's Berries. Fresh, juicy Mother's Day strawberries dipped in chocolatey goodness, starting at just $19.99. And satisfaction is guaranteed. And now, you can double the berries for just $9.99 more. The only way to get this amazing offer is to go to berries.com, click the microphone in the upper right corner, and enter code 5353. Topped with decadent chocolate chips and gorgeous pink shimmer sugar, these huge berries are oh so delicious and were specially designed just for Mother's Day. Mom's gonna love these. Gourmet dipped berries, just $19.99. Double the berries for just $9.99 more. Don't wait, Mother's Day is this Sunday. Order now. Shop berries.com, click the microphone in the upper right corner, and enter code 5353. That's berries.com, code 5353.
Back to KGAB's Wyoming Wake Up with Glenn Woods on AM 650 KGAB.
Phone number to get involved, 632-6500. If you're outside of Wyoming, kind of sucks to be you, but we'll take your call anyway. 632-6500. In-state, 888-503-6500. Okay, 2 calls lined up and ready to go. This is Glenn. You've been waiting through the entire commercial break. Who's on the phone?
Hey, Glenn, this is Steve.
Yes, sir.
Is that me?
Yes.
Hey, had a discussion about the chemicals or drugs they used to perform lethal injection. there's a much simpler way, and that's to use nitrogen, which makes up about 79% of the air atmosphere.
Okay.
And what would happen? The people would just simply breathe, pass out, and die.
Okay, well, in fact, you've got me on a question. I'm going to take what you just said and ask a question, which I think might be interesting. So if we were to continue with the death penalty, is there any way that you would find that would be acceptable to execute somebody? Any method at all?
No.
Okay.
No, I think some ways are worse than others,
Okay.
but even the quote-unquote best way still is a flawed and inefficient system.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that's an interesting question, because some people have called in the past when we've had this discussion and said, well, why don't you just use a bullet? It's what the Russians did. Well, it certainly ends it fast, doesn't it? But still, that wouldn't be acceptable to you to end it that quick.
Right, and I think part of focusing in on that part of the death penalty ignores all of the rest of the issues with the entire system. Wrongful convictions,
Right,
the cruel and
everything else.
unusual punishment piece. So taken holistically, I mean, there are certainly any number of ways that we could come up with as a society to kill people, but the baseline question of, is that a role we want our government to be playing, I think
Right.
is one that we really need to be asking
Well, there's
ourselves.
a part we didn't get in. Hang on, caller. I'm going to get to you in just a second. That's another one. I've heard more on the libertarian side. Do you really want to give your government power over life and death like that?
Right, and sort of one of the jokes is, we can't trust our government to deliver a mail. Do we really trust our government to decide issues of life and death? And I think that from our standpoint, I mean, we had some questions earlier about, are you pro-life? Are you pro-choice? What standpoint do you have on that? And from where we are coming from is we're really asking the question of, what is the role of our government? And we certainly do not believe that the role of government is to get involved in people's personal lives, and certainly not to make decisions on issues of life and death in an imperfect criminal justice system.
Okay, let's go back to the phones. This is Glenn. Who's on with us?
This is Bonnie from Wyoming.
Yes, ma'am.
And I wanted to mention a couple things. Now, the lady that's on with you, she had mentioned the man that had been, I thought she said, on death row for 20 years and was exonerated.
I believe, I don't remember the exact how much time it was. How much was it?
Well, and the most recent person taken off death row, Eaton was his last name, and he was not exonerated. What happened was he was convicted of murder and then put on death row, but the appeal, it was overturned because the courts determined that he had ineffective counsel, he had horrible mitigating problems that were not considered by the death penalty phase of the jury, and so that part was flawed. He was determined guilty, yes, but the death penalty was determined to be inappropriate, and right now he's in prison life without parole. So we're using the terms kind of overlapping.
Okay, well thank you. The second thing I wanted to mention was, I think Wyoming has been very careful in dealing out death penalties. And I'm not a big death penalty fan, but in some cases, like Mark Hopkinson, who deserved the death penalty because of what he was able to do behind prison. I don't know if you're real familiar with the case, but I think there's some things that need to be looked at, and using that as a way to say, yeah, we need to keep it on the books because we need to use it for some people.
Yeah, if I can just take a little bit of that, because I think the Mark Hopkinson case was a really important one, particularly at the legislature this past year as it was being discussed by our legislators. And I think something that I really want folks in Wyoming to know is that the legislators who represent Uinta County, the community that was most directly affected by what Mark Hopkinson did, both voted to repeal the death penalty and actually spoke quite forcefully on the floor about how after he was put to death in 1992, they realized their community was not healed. The people who had been murdered did not come back, and they realized that the death penalty actually did more damage than actually, serving any kind of justice. So I think as we think back to 1992 and we think about what that process did to the state of Wyoming, it was, from everyone that I've talked to, it was a deeply unpleasant time. It did not serve justice in any kind of way. So I think this idea that we need to keep the death penalty for the worst of the worst, or that there are these cases that we need to keep the death penalty for, it still doesn't serve justice, even in those cases and in those instances.
Okay, thanks for your call. We'll wrap this up in just a moment. It's AM 650, KGAB.
Hi, I'm Tom Bass, president of Wyoming Bank and Trust, and we're celebrating our 100th anniversary. The entire staff at Wyoming Bank and Trust would like to thank you for choosing us for the last 100 years. We want to thank our customers for making our bank the #1 community bank headquartered in Laramie County. Our one-on-one personal service is what you deserve and can expect from Wyoming Bank and Trust for the next 100 years. Member FDIC.
You know us. We've been a part of the Cheyenne community since 1934. You've met us before, probably at one of our annual events, like Neighborhood Night Out or Super Day. We are the people cheering beside you at weekend football games, at the Speedway, or the rodeo. We are Hawley Frontier. We work hard so we can support Cheyenne's economy, the families here, and our local environment. Hawley Frontier is proud to work alongside you. We're proud to be your neighbor.
Taco John's presents Olay the Day Pep Talks.
Human history has shown anything is possible with inspiration and hard work. The 4-Minute Mile, a man on the moon, a water skiing squirrel, and now sirloin steak burritos from Taco John's.
Sirloin steak burritos are back at Taco John's. Stuffed with hand-carved sirloin steak and bold flavors like the melty, savory grilled cheese steak burrito, plus steak and shrimp or steak and potato olays. And for the morning, 2 steak and egg breakfast burritos. Sirloin steak burritos are back, but only for a limited time. Olay the Day at Taco John's.
9:54 is the time. It's AM 650, KGAB Radio. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. A couple of ladies in the studio here to talk about repealing Wyoming's death penalty before I pick up the next couple of calls and try to squeeze them in real quick. Always got to do the sponsor thing. Death penalty for me is anything but snowy old coffee, just so you know. There, done. Yeah, you do that. You kind of squeeze that in. No one's paying attention. Inappropriate. Good. Fine. This is Glenn, who's on the phone.
This is Doug in Loveland.
Yes, sir. What you got for us?
I was just wondering if the ladies are pro-choice.
We've had that question. In fact, let me go ahead and follow up on that, because I was going to ask you a little bit earlier. Someone had asked, is it a conflict of interest? If someone in your organizations, any of your organizations, is, they're, let's say, pro-abortion, but they're pro-choice, but, the two. How do we do this? I'm getting confused.
Right, and I think that's part of why we've organized under the banner of a campaign, is because we have a lot of different organizations and a lot of different individuals who are coming at this from very different stances on other issues. But where we all unite is that we do not believe that Wyoming should have the death penalty.
Okay, no matter what. Let's go back. This is Glenn. Who's on the phone?
Bob,
yes,
from
sir.
Cheyenne.
Yes, sir.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Just very briefly, I have always said, and it's true, death cures recidivism problems.
Okay, well then answer that one. Death will cure a recidivism problem, even in the prison, because if he's in the prison, he's a murderer. He can still murder.
I'll just address that. The head of our Department of Corrections testified in the legislative committees that the current systems are not addressing whatever lapses they may have been in the past for security, but he is completely confident that they can keep someone who is in prison for murder, serving a term of life without parole. He can keep that prisoner, keep the rest of the prison population safe from this person. So I think these prison without parole means they are not released. There's no recidivism because they are secure in the prison, and he gave assurances that they can and are able. They do it now.
Okay, so you brought up the argument: death penalty doesn't heal the community, doesn't heal the family, and yet still, as the gentleman who called earlier, lost his daughter. Someone has been taken, probably brutal. So what do you do to heal the community, heal the family?
I think one of the things that we have talked about a great deal over the course of discussing the death penalty is the fact that, even if we aren't, getting to the end and putting people on death row, the death penalty still costs our state a great deal of money because every time a prosecutor says this might be a death penalty case, it kicks in a whole sort of series of processes, and it costs our state almost $1 million a year. So I think if we weren't spending that money on fighting these death penalty cases that aren't going to go anywhere, we could put that money back into victims' compensation funds or other ways that we could actually put money back into communities to start that healing process. So I think that there are ways to make that happen, but I think as long as we have the death penalty on the books and we're spending that money, inappropriately, I would argue, it makes it more difficult to really actually focus in on the victims' families, because the focus on the death penalty is on the person who perpetrated the crime rather than on the victim and on their family and on the community.
I'm going to squeeze in one more call. This is Glenn. Be quick. What's your question?
Hey, Glenn, real quick. Just how many people on that panel are people that have lost family members due to murder?
Okay, well, I guess that actually brings up a pretty good point, because would you feel different about it if you had lost a family member brutally yourself?
I think the way that I would answer this question is actually to kind of take a page out of our bill sponsor, Jared Olson's book, Representative Jared Olson from here in Cheyenne. And he said on the floor, he said, I get this question all the time. What would my response be if it were a member of my family? And he said, I grappled and I struggled with this question for a long time. And the reality is, in the heat of the moment, yeah, I might want the death penalty, but that's not how our system works. Our system isn't designed to just sort of be a system for vengeance or a system for revenge. It's a system for justice. And so, I have not lost any family members to murder, but I have family members who have struggled with other, with other issues. And I think what I would really like to see is focusing on making our community stronger, making our community safer from go, so that we have fewer crimes, we have fewer people who are harmed by crime.
Okay, so as you continue this process, League of Women Voters, Wyoming ACLU, we're going to find a cool acronym for you guys, and we'll have you back in as we get closer to the process. This next legislative session is a budget session. You going to introduce it then?
Yes.
You will? Okay. Thanks, ladies, for coming in. I appreciate the time.
Thanks.
AM 650, KGAB Radio, or KGAB.com. Go ahead and join us online.